So I'm gonna pin me. So I'm just on the little precipice here. We're kind of in the middle of our new moon circle, and it's fun to just freestyle a little bit, check in, enjoy the walk in the sunshine and such. But we're like in the new moon portal right now. We're in the vibes, and I feel like the conversation that we're having is catching some of this vibe. So I'm just gonna like jump in this sentence that I was in the middle of. I think we're at a really critical chapter in the um in the project of confronting the social construct of difference. We were just talking a lot about race, about being mixed race people. I was thinking about like in my childhood how it was two options, black or white, but I'm a lot more than that, culturally speaking. Um, and how in 2024 it's like, wow, is it because of like DNA testing, that like there's been some revelation, some unveiling, you know of just how mixed and blended we all are. And then my thought was, wouldn't it be cool if we could be in a global celebration of that, right? Could that be part of the antidote of moving forward, what needs to happen in terms of a redistribution of resources? I don't believe that redistribution of resources, that actionable step, that we could get to that before we engage in truth and reconciliation processes. These stories that have been silenced and erased being told. But in this juncture of the new moon, in the influences of the moment and the patterns that we can see, I think we're at a really critical moment, like a chapter, an assignment of sorts, of getting back into the conversation about race, class, cultural containers, spoken histories and unspoken histories, storytelling. And all of this needs to happen with the ancestors, like in ritual with the ancestors included in the room, like things start with ritual and this expanded scope. These are some of the whispers that I'm hearing at this new moon. Another whisper is about suffering. That again, we need to, these are real simple things. It's time to come loop back around to the purpose of suffering in the human experience. I am not talking about the way that humans cause harm towards each other, towards the animal world, the plant world, the soil, the earth world. Like, uh, yeah, we do need to address all of that. But what I'm talking about is the internal innate experience of suffering for humans and its role as spiritual penance. So the Christians really took penance and ran with it hard. And so we tend to associate penance with just punishment. Penance is difficult circumstances that, when seen through to their completion, result in positive, beneficial learning. Suffering is intrinsic to the human experience, and our ancestors understood this much better than we do because we live in a world of extreme comfort if you have access to it. But if you're watching this video, you probably have access to a great deal of comfort in life. You got access to a digital device to watch this. You have access to whatever platform you're watching this on. Like, we can say in the comparative, aspect of things, you probably like 90% of the people watching this are going to have pretty big access to comfort and some forms of privilege, right? The access of comfort. So this new moon in particular is in a very zodiac, sidereal Scorpio. Also, it's the very, very dark time of year. And so what do we do in the darkness? We turn inwards. And we will be encouraged to see the dark aspects of our personality, our character, our being, this in these places. And in these dark places, we will also sort of like dark inspiration. And in these places, we will also discover things about ourselves because we will light little lamps, little lights in the darkness. You have the opportunity to light your own beacon in the darkness. We are in a collective darkness. The train is really riding off the rails. Greed is winning. Evil is down here on Earth. It also seems to still be winning. Authoritarian rule is on the rise. Democracy seems a little fragile at the moment. We meaning I paint a dark picture like this. But what have the ancestors always done in the dark, dark, dark of winter? Light little lamps of hope, right? Light little lamps of possibility. And where we will find that is in the rest shelters, curled up next to the fire, under the warmth of the little bit of sun that we may receive in the winter hours, depending on how far north you are, like this. And so if we allow the ancestors in, right? If we call in the ancestors and we do these rituals and we rest with them, then it's like we're doing what the trees are doing, pulling the nutrients into the center of the trunk, driving it down into the roots, meeting up with the mycelial network, a literal cosmos in the earth, and then sharing nutrients amongst each other through the interconnected root systems via the mycelial network. That is some advanced shit, if you ask me. Yeah, we are supposed to be doing the same. We're supposed to be turning inwards, sort of turning the light a little lower, going into the earth, cuddling up with the mycelial network, and traveling the entire cosmos while we renew, while we regenerate. It's our time for regeneration. We have the new moon. It's November. No, just kidding. What is this? It's December 1st. Right? It's December 1st. And we've got, kind of the rest, this whole month, basically. We'll have a new moon on the 15th, but right after that, there's going to be these days like the 17th to I think about the 21st leading up to the winter solstice where our star has its annual alignment with the center of our galaxy, and our star renews. Wow. And then we have our darkest night of the year, winter solstice. And then on the other end of that, there are several days still for deep restfulness like this. So if you could take all of December and devote yourself to the most epic rest possible, you will emerge in January with the little light increasing day by day as we move towards like February 2nd, Candlemas, the midpoint between winter solstice and the spring equinox. And just like how the sun, just like how our star renews, you will also have been in the annual renewal. I want to share a little resource here that just came in the mail. If you'd like a light read, this is Nidra Shakti, the power of rest. It is an encyclopedia that is all about the feminine power, Shakti, the feminine power behind rest, this collective energy of rest that we are tapped into, and just how powerful it is. So if you really want to understand this consciousness, that's the word I'm looking for, this Nidra Shakti, this feminine consciousness of rest, and you would like to snuggle up with something, this is by Uma Dinsmore Thule, hot off the presses, self-published. It is a thing, this book. And I'm really proud to have a few contributions in here, a couple of transcripts and some of the contributions around the indigenous, Native North American indigenous practices of sacred dreaming, Yoga Nidra, and maybe a few other shout outs in there. So that's something really special like this. Really excited to celebrate this book arriving from England at the new moon. So where's this moon, right? This moon is in Scorpio and it's in a nakshatra. So I like to represent on sidereal astrology from South Asia. And it's in a very kind of sweet and friendly place inside the darkness called Anuradha. It literally means little Radha. This Radha is like the lover devotee of Krishna, and Radha is the wife mother, of Krishna. They've got this interplay relationship. So Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and so that's pretty fiery. And this nakshatra in particular is ruled by Saturn. Mars and Saturn don't make a nice pair. Yeah, they go at it hard when they're kind of together. So it's a really intense place, but I said it's also a place for friendliness and creativity. So I'm going to read a little from Bepin Bihari's Myths and Symbols of Vedic Astrology, and let's see if we can like pull out a few things. I kind of prefaced that I think this is a really important chapter that we're coming into right now of the celebration of our multiplicity as systems dismantle, and that we need to come back around now to difficult conversations about race and class, dominant culture, and how that is promoted and propagated. Let's see what insights we can derive. Okay, so Mars is very fiery and Saturn is very cold. Like already we've got this like dichotomy here in terms of the elements. They just aren't on the same wavelength. Every nakshatra, every lunar mansion, so those are moon phases, has a symbol, and this symbol is the lotus. Remember, the lotus is an extraordinary plant. If you've ever had the chance to just sit by lotus flowers and contemplate their being. You could do it for just hours and hours and hours and hours. And this is why the lotus is a symbol of perfection, spiritual perfection. It grows in the mud, deep, sticky mud, and arises from the nutrients of the mud, the most beautiful of flowers, and the seeds drop and they fall back into the mud. And there's just this constant regenerative process of earth, mud in water, the fire of growth, the blooming, the reaching of air, the dropping of seed space back in. So the lotus is like a symbol of the complete structure. This. The presiding deity is named Mitra. And Mitra he's the deity of friendliness and cooperation. He brings people together, right? Mitra is worshipped as the light of the day. Isn't that so interesting that this is like the darkest part of the zodiac, right? This is the power that brings to light what is attained during the night. So, just doing a little editing here. So it is through the benevolent influence of Mitra that our efforts succeed and the secret powers begin to open and come out. The lotus, right? Mitra as the light of day heralds the dawn, the beginning of new possibilities. At the dawn of a new life, the fruits of past labor yield their results. I think we're at a dawning. Let's see. Okay, just doing a little editing. Anuradha, the star, the star that we're in at the new moon, strives to rend the veil of ignorance and uncover our central core to show what is hidden within us. Mitra uncovering in the morning the imitations of our divine heritage, what is concealed by Varuna at night, the ignorance under the influence of Maya. So this asterism is giving us some juice to uncover our ignorances, to lift the veils. With this awareness grows understanding, empathy, friendliness, and a union with the universal energy. This realization is not a smooth process, but full of turmoil and conflict. As an aftermath of these conflicts, of the dematerialization process, the individual is able to identify himself with the universal, the macrocosm. Scorpio, the 8th house of the cosmic man, the zodiac here, the sign in which Anuradha is found, is regarded as a secret cavity, like a cave. During the period of night or mental obscurity and ignorance, the individual loses his sense of oneness with the universe. This darkness, Mitra dispels under his watchful care. The manner in which the uncovering takes place depends upon individual circumstances. In some cases, it may give pleasant experiences that enable the individual to recover their primeval memory, while in other instances, it may give heart-rendering pain, leading to the same goal. Either way, it's a process of dematerialization. I also named right now, what I'm hearing on the whispers of this new moon is the importance for us to take another look, another loop around to the purpose of suffering. We keep reading. Anuradha, the name of this asterism, means smaller Radha or the follower of Radha. Radha is, in one sense, a small lightning flash or spark. In this way, Anuradha implies a small sparkle or fragmented lightning representing the microcosm. The perception of our fragmentation from wholeness arouses the urge to unite with it, to be the whole once again. In another meaning, Radha is the beloved of Lord Krishna. Radha, deeply attached to Krishna, stands for the same relationship of the microcosm with the macrocosm. She was separate physically from Krishna, divinity, but psychologically and in essence was with him every moment. All the stories of Radha and Krishna. This made her a great devotee of the Lord Krishna, though on this account she had to suffer much pain and anguish of separation. Under Anuradha, the deep psychological urge to unite with the original source is aroused, and the individual is made to feel as a fragmented unit of divinity. The astrological symbol for Anuradha is the lotus flower, whose Sanskrit name is Padma. It also refers to sexual intercourse and can refer to the evacuation of excrement. The lotus stands for Lakshmi, the consort of Vishnu, who appears in the form of Radha for Lord Krishna. From the navel of Vishnu arises the macrocosmic lotus on which is seated Brahma, the creator of the universe. The lotus flower contains within itself the entire creative process. It mystically reflects the various stages of cosmic evolution. So this image, so Brahma in this imagery is the creator of the universe. It's emerging from his navel. And this is, it's mainly Vishnu resting. I got a lot of images of Vishnu. Just seeing if I had a little picture reference for you, but I don't think I do. I have all the Vishnu pictures. It's a great resource, this encyclopedia. Okay. I thought I had an image of Brahma. Oh no, yeah, from the navel of Vishnu. Hello. Brain on this morning. Okay, so here's the fun. Okay. From the navel of Vishnu, the lotus emerges. And Vishnu is resting on the snake, Shesha. And what is happening here? Vishnu is in the state of Yoga Nidra. In order for Vishnu to birth the universe, he is entirely under the control of Yoga Nidra Shakti Devi. His consort Lakshmi is massaging his feet. So this connection of, and then there's many versions of this image in the encyclopedia. In this understanding of the connection here is Yoga Nidra, is the power of rest, sacred dreaming, liminal subconscious states of mind. Like, that's where we go to do this healing work, to become whole again. Padma, lotus, stands for manifestation occurring from the ever-concealed seed. The lotus grows from the mud, symbol of the deepest level of material equivalent to the unpleasant smelling oyster from which the pure pearl is taken out. There is, however, a significant difference. The pearl can be taken out of the oyster by suddenly breaking it, which in the case of the lotus, the development occurs gradually, step by step, mirroring stages of manifestation. In the case of the lotus, the seed takes root in the mud, which represents the original ignorance or primeval matter. It pushes itself up in water, which stands for emotion, the emotional life of a person. From it, attracted by the sun's rays, sprouts the stalk. It comes to the surface representing the soul's growth, through various lives, which by the experience of divine attraction struggles to emerge from the lower earthly realm. Having emerged from the realm of emotion, the soul opens in mental activities symbolized by air, but the long journey of the lotus does not stop at this stage. Its aspiration for the sun continues, and it finally flowers to greet the sun. It then withers away, but its seed falls back into the mud to repeat the process again. The lotus symbol in this way emphasizes the soul's thirst for union with the source. Though it may fall again under the sway of cycle of birth and death, a radical psychological change has occurred. Under Anuradha, the latent powers in humans begin to manifest. The ignorance gained during the period of night, resulting in attachment to worldly existence, must be purged. This is the whisper. The dirt of the mud of materiality has to be cleansed in water. Emotional purity must be attained prior to regaining one's original nature. At this stage of emotional purification, the aspirant must seek union with the master, the guru, the master, the self-guru, the guidance system within, the guidance system of nature, the ancestors. Just saying, I think we could pump this out a little bit. The individual must strive to unify himself. I'm going to change that language. The individual must strive to unify themselves with the ultimate. This is not easy, and there are many pitfalls and hardships to be endured. Penance, spiritual penance, pitfalls and hardships to be endured on the way to reuniting with the source. Yoga, union wisdom. All these stages are represented by the lotus, either in its physical form or as implied in its Sanskrit name. The lotus of the soul has to pass through various stages of unfoldment, for each phase of which are required corresponding efforts of the aspirant. Almost finished. It's a long chapter. The impediments and struggles experienced by the aspirant are indicated by the planetary rulership of this asterism, Saturn, the planet of spiritual penance. Yes. So good. Spiritual trials. As the aspirant can succeed only with courage and perseverance. Mars, the Lord of Scorpio, has its place in the process. The difficulties on the path of the soul's evolutionary journey and the misery experienced at important stages of its unfoldment are expressed by Saturn. The impulses flowing from Mars provide for the appropriate courage and competence for uncovering our latent powers, leading to the attainment of the light of the dawn, the understanding of our original nature, courageous endurance for the sake of divine love is the keynote of this asterism. What? I am hearing this. I'm really feeling this today. Also because I just personally have made it through like a 3-month spiritual penance that I didn't know I was signing up for. And so I'm just like, I get it. I get it. Like what that pressure cooker environment allows us to do is access accelerated growth. Also, how on earth are you going to see yourself? You're going to see yourself in others. It's a possibility. Also possibility. My personal experience that I just had wasn't so much that, it was more that another person's energy could excite my ego in a way that I could hold up the mirror because I've practiced doing that I could hold up the mirror and see myself. And what I saw within myself was some pretty like fine ego stuff. Like it was really high level ego in terms of pride, judgment, and superiority. This. And watching that be agitated, have a crest you know, and then a waning. The waning is pretty interesting too, of just like all the emotional grasping and like emotional things that came up. I wouldn't name that so much as Vijnana Maya Kosha intellect layer, but just more like, oh wow, look at these like emotional patterns. It's like pulling some like, look at this thing that's on repeat. Like and each one was, does this serve me? You know, does this have a healthy application? Like, what of all this junk? It's like I'm purging, you know? What of all this stuff needs to get like shined up or tools sharpened and can be neatly kept in the toolkit for right application or skillful means? At the same time, how can I have all of this emotional stirring and not self-gaslight? Not stuff it down or ignore it, but see it as part of a process of an aspect of my ego that is dying, except is going out a little ugly. It's grasping, it's kicking, it's screaming, it's reaching for reinforcement. And ultimately, that little spark, that lightning crack, that anurada is coming through. But the darkness within wants to cover it right back up. No, you're not healed. You're broken. No, you're not whole. You're wounded. Well, hang on a second. Let's see, because wow, this negative energy I'm experiencing, it's like it was trying. I felt like I went through a stress test of like, yeah, let's see if those wounds are healed. Do they hold? And they actually held. It doesn't mean I didn't experience extreme discomfort and physical suffering from that extreme discomfort. But what I was thinking about before I ever even started the circle this morning is we have to keep educating ourselves about the purpose of suffering. Even now in my own anecdote, I've named several different types of suffering. I named physical suffering. I named energetic suffering. I named the suffering of emotions and conditionings. I named the suffering of the part of my ego that's trying to protect itself. I named the suffering of superiority complex, of judgments and pride. I named the suffering on multiple dimensions of being, right? And then I live within the suffering of a social construct of difference. I live in the inheritance of suffering, of slavery, of exodus, of diaspora, right? If I use myself as an example, like my own case study here, if I was going to address each of these sufferings one by one, I don't know if this lifetime is enough time to heal all of those individually. I need some sort of compound approach. I need some healing tools that let me access all dimensions at the same time. And I gotta tell you, number one on my list, one more time, Nidra. Yoga Nidra. Look, it's the technology. It's literally the inheritance of the ancestors. And now we have a book, we have a reference that has the indigenous voice in it. We're no longer saying, yes, from South Asia. And then it shows up in other indigenous cultures. No, like Uma did the job. She stitched it all back together. And that's what I do in my academic work. I bring indigenous traditions in conversation with one another for restoration. And then in that restoration work, a third space is generated. You are the third space. We are the collages of the moment. Every single one of us is a cultural collage, is a gender collage, is an ableism collage. Like, there's a way for us to bring what seems like outer work, decolonization, system dismantling. There's a way for us to bring this together with the inner work through healing principles and work on multiple dimensions at the same time. That decolonization and that system dismantling in cannot solely be focused externally. Similarly, the spiritual cultivation journey cannot solely be focused internally. But if we meld it all together, decolonization as a spiritual practice, beginning with rematriation, laying this body on the earth. This is where we started the conversation, but I don't think it's in the recording of we need to be the trees right now. The trees in the dark of winter. The leaves have fallen. We're not in the relationship of the nutrients from the sun, external. The trees draw the energy into the trunk, go down into the roots, where the mycelial network is connecting all of the tree roots together and sharing nutrients while in rest mode. That's what we're supposed to be doing right now. We're supposed to be in the rest where we all meet up and sharing nutrients. Being in the nutrification of this body at the time in the season of renewal, this whole month is really the month of renewal. And then come the winter solstice, little light returning, but there's still like that deep renewal period, right? And then we can say once we come into January, a little bit into January, it starts to pick up as we're moving towards Candlemas, midpoint of winter solstice, and spring equinox, which is where we really start to turn it on like this, meaning light is collecting significantly. We're starting to feel it. Without understanding suffering as spiritual penance, we remain a little cut off. It's like a circuit isn't quite connected. We're looking outwardly and we see the suffering of genocide, the suffering of famine, the suffering of displacement, the suffering of being unhoused. We can see that. But what we seem to still not see as a collective is that this internal work, connecting to the ancestors, resting, rematriating, decolonizing, this internal work has a direct outcome towards the dismantling of those external systems. You literally are the meeting place of this work. You are the collage. You are the third space. Every single one of us is. And if we would just do what the trees are doing and head on down and be in the cosmos, in the earth, in the warmth and the nutrification of that, we're riding the wave. This journey will be both supported and accelerated. Now, the experience of accelerated processing of one's negatives, evil nature, gunk and junk that you're carrying, it's not pleasant. And that's also why we need community. While it may feel like, no, this is my work, I gotta do it. Even still, you're not meant to be entirely isolated doing it. You're not meant to be hiding and doing it. I role model this. Like I narrate my own experiences in an inspiration to just normalize what this actually looks like, what it looks like to peel back the mind, onion layer by onion layer. And if you're noticing from these moon circles and even like Bepin Bihari's work, this understanding of the nakshatras, there's this, this amorphous, it's constantly in a pulsation, it's constantly in transformation. The process, it's constantly changing like the moon is only in a place for 2 days. So even when the moon has a bad conjunction, we had just last week moon and Ketu, that was like last weekend, moon and Saturn, like what's going on, why am I having a bad day? Where's the moon? Is moon with Mars, is moon with Ketu, south node of the moon, is moon with Saturn? Yeah, but right now moon is aspecting Mars. They're having an exchange. So an amplification in a positive way. Mars is in a really watery place right now, but this nice fiery place, even though then it's in a little bit airy place with Saturn, but they're activating and Mars is going to get a little bit charged. And so you have a little boost at this moon to get into some of this transformative energy in the dark, to be in the Anuradha, to be in the spark, to be in the lightning in the dark, to wake up by sleeping. Yeah, it's always paradoxical. Like this. We've got some changefulness coming, in this next 2-week moon phase. Venus is gonna push on to the next sign. Sun is gonna move into sidereal Sagittarius. There's some movement, there's some things happening. Neptune is going to go direct, and when that conjunction happens, that could be a little lively. Uranus is still moving in retrograde, but it's going to be heading into sidereal Aries from sidereal Taurus. So we're gonna get some more like sparks and things from the planet of revolution and change. Jupiter is also transiting retrograde in sidereal Taurus. So that's a very intensified planet. There'll be some conjunctions over the larger month, but I guess my priority is pointing out some of these rest portals, and a lot of those are going to follow the full moon with that. So we'll definitely be picking back up these threads of rest, deep rest and renewal in this month. From November, we have been talking a little bit of astrology in terms of the US birth chart and some of the dramatic events that are happening in that astrological chart. And at the end of this month will also be the exact Pluto return moment. So we've been in this like Mars-Pluto activation in the US chart. It's a very significant thing. It's a moment of revolution and rebirth. I will again reiterate, if you want to be smart, you will take this month and you will do the bestest rest you've ever done. And you will be a little bit ahead of the game come January 20th. Like this. There's probably more to say then, but I'm going to wait till then to say it. But this is a pretty sweet download for the day. So just, wishing you all the restfulness in the full moon space. I'll pause here and just kind of loop back around community style. Do you all have any shares of your own, any views of your own, any observations that you've made